So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about content production, basically what goes on the screens. So most of the time, a lot of our content is slides, just like we have here. These are PowerPoint that we're using here. Keynote is the other popular slide program. That's usually the Mac format. And you can also use Prezi, which is not used as much. I'm not sure if you've seen Prezi, but basically it takes slides and it sort of zooms them around and manipulates them in different ways. It looks cool. It's just not as common in the marketplace at the moment. And that all falls under the title of graphics for us. So when we talk about graphics, we're not necessarily talking about a graph, we're talking about slides. We definitely recommend that people give time thinking about how the slides are created. It's often one of the biggest problems during rehearsals is whether the slides are being created correctly. So we recommend that people put together a show template, telling people, you know, the presenters who are going to be putting together the slides, the common look and feel of all the slideshows, make sure the aspect ratio is correct. You can change the aspect ratio in there. But changing it from a previously 4:3 slideshow to 16:9 is a little bit more challenging. It can be done. And we do have to deal with it all the time. Also, with a template deck that you give out to your presenters, you can make sure that they all have the same font, the same size font. But it also takes the guesswork out of putting together the presentations for your presenters, because they might go, well, I've got to do a presentation. What color should it be? You know, this way you can just hand them a show template and say, use this, make your slides, it'll look great. And then at the end, you can compile a master slide deck that has all of the presentations all in a row, and they go forward smoothly. We will often utilize a graphics operator, somebody whose job it is to create PowerPoint or Prezi or Keynote slides, and more importantly, really, to operate them on show. Because there's one thing to, you know, to put together your slide deck, but there's another thing to be in charge of that little button, which makes it go forward. If the CEO of some giant company is standing on stage, you don't want to mess up. And our graphics operators are, that's what they do. They sit there and they just concentrate on the slideshow. If you are using any embedded video files in a PowerPoint deck, make sure that the original files are included in the folder with the PowerPoint. That way your PowerPoint can play them back correctly. We have a ton of videos in this, and everything seems to be playing fine because
you did
all the videos.
it.
I just jinxed it, didn't I? A note on notes. Lots of people create PowerPoint decks with notes built into their slides. And it becomes a problem when 5 minutes from show, the presenter walks in and says, hey, can you put my notes on the confidence monitor, the downstage monitor for me? It is possible to do. It used to be where we would have to copy the notes, create a new PowerPoint slide deck with the notes, and then have both going. You can do notes on a downstage monitor. You do need a second computer. One computer is going to be running the slides, the other computer is running the notes. But the notes are actually just created by manipulating the notes deck in the PowerPoint, the existing PowerPoint. So if you just, where the notes are, if you just then drag the borders over, drag it up, and then you can change the font size. And then this little button up here that says swap displays, you hit that button and it sends this note window to the extended desktop so that the presenter can see it without you seeing, you know, it doesn't say on here. Well, you need one computer to display the slides and another computer to display this note deck.
The confidence monitor displays the notes.
Right, yes. Alternately, you could have the laptop sitting on stage, but for most of our presentations, we've got a backup computer somewhere or multiple computers, and that's not practical for us to have the computers on stage. So, but that's one way to do it, and it's a neat little trick. The other thing that goes on our screens most commonly is video content. Obviously, that can be an opening video, bumper intro videos for different presenters, content videos that are made during the show, closing videos. We ask for this content to be presented to us in a QuickTime MOV file format. ProRes 422 is the codec we recommend. It's a standard codec that was created actually for Final Cut Pro, which is an editing software. 1920 by 1080 is the aspect resolution we're looking for, which is HD. Progressive. When videos are shot on cameras like that one that Mike is manning right now, the video is shot interlacing. So it shoots half of the frames like this and half of the frames like this. And when they plays it back, they sync them together, and you see them both at the same time. Your eye doesn't see those lines. But if you play it back on a computer, you will see these lines if it's interlaced. So when you're exporting the video content, you can make it de-interlaced. It's called progressive format, and that's what we need. We often will get people give us an interlaced video, and we'll have to ask them to give us the de-interlaced version. Very important. 29.997 frames per second is the frame rate we're looking for. That's the rate at which our equipment, our projectors, our switches, all operate at. Europe operates at 25 frames per second. And some video producers shoot their films at 24 frames a second because that was how film was shot, 24 frames a second. Your computer doesn't do 24 frames a second, so what happens is if somebody gives us a 24 frames per second video, we play it back, our computer system then has to add 6 frames a second in order to produce it, to play it back normally. So it's a little complicated, but basically those are the things we ask for so that we're all on the same page, so that the video plays back smoothly. You can also give videos to us at a smaller video size, a smaller file size, and that's in a QuickTime H.264 codec. It's more compressed. You can see the difference if you've got a trained eye, but it still looks really good. Mainly the difference comes up when you're looking at, like if the sky went from blue to dark blue, you could see stepping of that gradient. The other thing to note here is the 20 megabytes per second. That's the data rate. If you try and make it any larger than that, the computer has a problem playing it back. So I know that's kind of detailed, but it's something that comes up a lot for us when we're asking for video content. We use a system called Playback Pro, which is to Nick's left there. It's basically a computer program that lets us play back videos. It lets us load in multiple videos. We can load in, I don't know, lots and lots of videos. So we've had 100 in a go. And you can trim the videos in it. You can change the start and stop. You can adjust the playback speed, level of the audio, all of those things. And it lets us play back videos really smoothly. And you can actually control it from some of the other systems that we have here as well. That's if you're playing one video at a time. If you have multiple screens and multiple videos playing at the same time, you need a media server. For us, we use a computer program called Watchout. And it's basically a PC-based computer program that tells, you create a timeline, you have all these videos in it, and then you can say, play this video here, this video here, this video here, and it sends the outputs to different places. So that's all possible. It's not a problem for us to achieve that. The other thing that goes on our screens is IMAG, cameras. IMAG stands for image magnification, because if somebody's standing on stage, they're very small over there and way away from where I'm sitting, but if you put cameras on screen, obviously we can see them. So IMAG generally only gets used when it's in a larger room. Some people might use it in a smaller room, especially if you're doing a demo and you need to see something up close or something. But it's a very common occurrence for us, something to consider when we are doing IMAG with cameras on screen like this. You also have to pay attention to the lighting, make sure it's lit well because your cameras need good light. You also have to pay attention to the gels that are used in the lights. Another little technical thing here, but I'll tell you anyway, so you're in on secret. Projectors operate at a color temperature of 6,500 Kelvin. Lights, like these lights here, the traditional incandescent lights, are quite yellow, and they operate at 3,200 K. Now I can't see because I've been staring at the lights. So the difference is, when we point a camera at me, and we're covering me with light that's a little yellow. In order to make the camera look correct when we're recording, we add a little blue in the camera control unit. It's called coloring the camera. So we add a little blue, it looks normal. Then when we take that image and put it in a 6500 Kelvin projector, this is more blue than those lights.
Don't worry about that blend. It's
We've
fine.
added blue. Did I just mess it up?
That's all right.
We've added blue, so now what's happening is this makes the image look blue. So you have to color correct the lights, which is something that not everybody thinks about or knows how to do. But basically, we ask the lighting people to put a gel in the lights that is little blue. It's a quarter blue, and that allows us to add less blue on the camera, and therefore the lighting looks right. If anybody's interested, I'm going to quickly look it up on here on my phone because I can never remember what kind of gel it is. There are different manufacturers. If it's Lee, which is L-E-E-E, that's Lee 203, Apollo 2080, and Roscoe 3208. That's the color blue that we drop into the lights to color correct the lights. Hi.
Question was, is that for all video or just IMAG?
Thank you for repeating the
You're
question for
welcome.
the recording, Nick.
Yeah.
That's a good question. It's only really necessary when you're doing it for IMAG, because if you're just doing it for the record, we don't care how it ends up, anywhere else. So we don't need it unless we're putting IMAG on the screens. Sometimes our lighting people might put it in as a matter of course, just because that's what we do. But sometimes you might find that just to the naked eye, the stage looks a little yellow. Especially if you're dimming the lights when the presenters go, oh, can you bring those lights down a little bit? It's not going to the naked eye, they look a little yellow. So the only other thing that's changing now is that lighting people are now using LED lights. And that changes, because those are actually blue. So now we actually have to have them we have to get them to add orange to those lights, which they can just dial in to the little computer thing they use. So we would often use multiple cameras. You could just use one camera, which Mike is using a camera on me right now. But as soon as Nick starts talking, you either have to pan that camera over to Nick or you cut to another camera. So we often will end up with at least 2 cameras on a show. Here's an example here. This is camera 1 on screen. And then I cut to camera 2. Right now, camera 1 is now repositioning on our moderator, back to camera 1. Now camera 2 is spinning around and going up into the audience, and then I'm going to cut to camera 2. There's camera 2. So that's why we utilize multiple cameras. That was actually only 2 cameras in that event. And also, if you have a band on stage, this is an event a couple of weeks ago, multiple cameras lets you give a more polished rendition of the what's happening on the screen. And that's just 2 cameras.
That guy was really insistent that she have that drink.
I don't want to drink.
Oh, fine.
So audience response systems. This is what I just wanted to talk about next. We get this a lot nowadays. It's becoming more common. So people are utilizing iPads, iPhones, software to let them ask questions of the audience, and the audience respond via their wireless device. For us, all that means is that we need to get an input from the vendor's computer, because it's nearly always a computer software that's happening. And so we just need to think about where the vendor is going to be, how they're going to get the input to our switcher systems. So it's a conversation that needs to happen prior to the event. It's always more difficult when we show up and somebody says, oh, by the way, we're doing audience response systems, and he's going to be in the lobby. Makes it a little more difficult. We'll figure it out. Twitter feed is the other thing that comes up a lot now. Twitter is obviously just basically a web page. So for us, it will end up being, we'll need a separate computer that is receiving this Twitter feed, and then we might put it on a separate video screen somewhere, or we might put it as a window, picture-in-picture window on our larger screen.
Always important to have someone keeping an eye on the Twitter feed before it goes up. Because it is sort of, opening the floodgates to whomever wants to say something filthy.
Yes.
Which can happen.
That would never happen.